2, 1. Good evening and welcome to the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority meeting of February 11th, 2020. Madam Clerk, you may call the roll.
Councilmember Bierman.
Here.
Councilmember Carter is absent. Councilmember Petrone.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Scanlon.
Here.
Councilmember Scott.
Here.
Mayor Clark is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Holman.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 3 is the consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so that the City Council, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine agenda items that they wish to be approved or acknowledged by one motion. I need a motion to place items 4 through 29 on the consent docket.
So moved.
Second.
The motion on the floor is to place items 4 through 29 on the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been place items 4 through 29 on the consent docket. Passes unanimously.
Okay, item number 4, approval of the City Council study session minutes of November 19th, 2019, City Council conference minutes of November 26th, 2019, City Council special session minutes of December 3rd, 2019, City Council study session minutes of December 17th, 2019. There's a typo right there. And City Council, Norman Utilities Authority minutes, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority of January 14th, 2020. Item number 5, ordinance 0-1920-32 upon first reading, granting special use for a bar, lounge, or tavern, and special use for live entertainment venue in C3 Intensive Commercial District for property located at 311 and 313 East Main Street. Item number 6, ordinance 0-1920-34 upon first reading, rezoning 13300 East Deer Creek Road from A2 Rural Agricultural District to PUD Planned Unit Development District. Item number 7, ordinance 0-1920-40 upon first reading, amending Chapter 8 of the City Code to change the requirement of City Council approval for all contracts exceeding $25,000 to $50,000. Item number 8, mayor's appointments of Hal Cantwell, Sarah Shanks, and Lee Krumholtz to the Bicycle Advisory Committee, Andrew Hewlett to the Greenbelt Commission, Samuel Woodfork to the Human Rights Commission, and Liz McCown to the Norman Forward Citizens Financial Oversight Board. Item number 9, submission of the Norman Forward Financial Oversight Board Annual Report for 2019. Item number 10, submission of the 2019 Annual Complaints Report from the Human Rights Commission. Item number 11, easement E-1920-30, acceptance of a permanent roadway drainage and utility easement donated by Apex Properties, LLC for the 36th Avenue Northwest Widening Project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hills Road Bond Project. Item number 12, easement E-1920-31, acceptance of a permanent roadway drainage and utility easement donated with damages in the amount of $34,000 by Raven Investments, LLC for the 36th Avenue Northwest Widening Project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hill Road Bond Project. Item number 13, easement E-1920-32, acceptance of a permanent roadway drainage and utility easement from Raven Investment, LLC in the amount of $29,138 for the 36th Avenue Northwest Widening Project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hill Road Bond Project. Item number 14, temporary easement E-1920-33, acceptance of a temporary roadway easement donated by Raven Investments LLC for the 36th Avenue Northwest widening project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hill Road bond project. Item number 15, temporary easement E-1920-34, acceptance of a temporary roadway easement donated by Raven Investments LLC for the 36th Avenue Northwest widening project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hill Road bond project. Item number 16, easement E-1920-35, acceptance of permanent roadway drainage and utility easement from Raven Investments LLC for the 36th Avenue Northwest widening project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hill Road bond project. Item number 17, easement E-1920-36, acceptance of a permanent roadway drainage and utility easement from Raven Investments LLC in the amount of $13,702.50 for the 36th Avenue Northwest widening project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hills Road bond project. Item number 18, temporary easement E-1920-37, acceptance of a temporary public drainage easement from Raven Investments LLC for the 36th Avenue Northwest widening project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hills Road bond project. Item number 19, temporary easement E-1920-38, acceptance of a temporary private driveway easement donated by Kicking Bird Medical Building LLC for the 36th Avenue Northwest widening project from Tecumseh Road to Indian Hill Road bond project. Item number 20, final site development plan and final plat for Greenleaf Trails Edition, Section 10, a planned unit development located 1/4 mile east of 12th Avenue Northwest and 1/4 mile south of Tecumseh Road. Item number 21, final plat of a replat of Victory Family Church Edition located between Flood Avenue, Highway 77, and 24th Avenue Northwest, and 1/3 mile south of Franklin Road. Item number 22, final site development plan and final plat for Carroll Farm Edition, Section 4, a replat of Lot 1A, Carroll Farm Edition, Section 3, a planned unit development located between 36th Avenue Northwest and Journey Parkway on the north side of West Tecumseh Road. Item number 23, final site development plan and final plat for University North Park Edition, section, I'm not as keen on the Roman numerals, sorry. 17. Oh. A planned unit development located between I-35 and 24th Avenue Northwest on the north side of Corporate Center Drive. It's been a very long time since I've studied the Roman numerals past number 5, probably. Item number 24, change order number 1 to contract K-1819-125 with Central Contracting Services, Inc., increasing the contract amount by $193,130 for a revised contract amount of $3,038,721 and extending the contract time by 90 calendar days to construct water line replacements along the west side of Classen Boulevard, extending 500 feet north from Highway 9. Item number 25, change order number 1 to contract K-1920-23 with Central Contracting Services, Inc., decreasing the contract amount by $28,379 for a revised contract amount of $102,806 for the Acres Sidewalk Project from Flood Avenue to Porter Avenue and final acceptance of the project. Item number 26, contract K-1920-110 with ODOT in the amount of $445,174 for the Highway 9 multimodal path Phase 3 between 36th Avenue Southeast and 48th Avenue Southeast. Resolution R-1920-87 and budget appropriation from the capital fund balance. Item number 27, contract K-1920-112 with the Oklahoma City Dodgers in the amount of $46,950 for the Norman Forward Reeves Park Southeast Baseball Field Improvements Project. Item number 28, contract K-1920-113 with Merit Tennis and Track Systems in the amount of $41,650 for the 12th Avenue Recreation Center Pickleball Courts Project and Resolution R-1920-89 granting tax exempt status. Item number 20, Contract K-1920-115 with Garver LLC in the amount of $533,250 for design and oversight of a research pilot study for inland indirect potable reuse located at the Water Reclamation Facility. And item number 29, I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent docket.
So moved. Second.
On these consent items. Councilmember Patron.
On number 22, on the farms, I forgot what the name it was. Carroll Farms. Sorry, I'm pulling it back up here. Would it be possible to speak with someone that is on that project? Anyone? Bueller?
I'm Mohammed Khan with SMC Consulting, 815 West Main. With the engineer for the project, and I have representative here too. I'll be happy to answer any questions related to engineering aspect of this project.
Thank you, sir. In looking through the materials, I wasn't able to ascertain what it was that's being built.
What is being proposed, what was proposed and what is being built, the site development work, the extension of sanitary sewer services or main line. Storm sewer is all existing. Water line is existing. Detention is provided by an existing detention pond. And then the site development work.
I do have questions about stormwater, but I was, as far as like
Please go ahead.
well, let me ask this first. The end product, like the buildings that are going to be put there, I wasn't able to tell on the drawings what was going in. Could you tell us about the project?
The uses of those buildings?
Yeah, is it,
I might defer that answer to Eric. However, as far as the related to storm sewer goes, since the storm sewer is an existing storm sewer, so all of the storm water generated by the site is being captured by the existing storm sewer and is conveyed to an existing off-site detention pond.
okay, I'm gonna ask about that one in just a second.
Sure. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Eric Flesky, the developer, and the building that's being proposed is a financial institution, a bank.
A bank? Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. That's what I was kind of wondering. And for the stormwater side of it, it said that they were going to underground pipes, but it didn't say. I was wondering, can you tell me where it ultimately is going to be
Discharge.
discharged?
Right. So right adjacent to the site, there is an existing storm sewer system which is part of the street system. So it captures the stormwater from adjacent properties as well as it'll capture the stormwater from the proposed site, and then it'll convey it to an existing detention pond through an underground detention system.
Where's that pond?
I may have to refer to this exhibit, which is part of the staff report as well. And I think that is one of the exhibit shown as location map. And so it shows the subject track in a bold dashed line with shaded area. And then the stormwater pond is in the northeast portion of the site.
On the same subject tract?
No, it's off the subject track. And the detention pond was provided for the overall development of the property. So not just the subject property, but it's part of the regional detention pond.
Sorry, 1 second, sir.
That's okay.
So recently, yeah, sorry. I'm trying to pull it up on my end.
I mean, if it helps you, I can show you the preliminary plat where pond is shown.
Do you see? Okay, so recently, the city of Norman, I guess this is, just help me walk through this, but, we had, we've updated our FEMA floodplain maps,
Yes.
this is in Ward 8, but Ward 8 and Ward 3, and, have had some changes in the area from new development. And so, what my question is, and maybe, Mr. O'Leary could probably, or Miss Evenson if she's here, I don't know, but, could explain to me better, but if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that we're gonna use existing, infrastructure for this, for what's in the area
Right.
today. So we're not expanding in any way for this project, and maybe it's not required, and that's understandable. I just am wanting to
yeah.
understand.
The proposed project is part of the watershed, which was considered fully developed to design this pond. So the pond is sized to intercept and collect the area for the watershed where this proposed project is located. So existing infrastructure is already sized and designed for this proposed project.
Okay, I still didn't find the pond. Okay, if I can talk to, thank you. Can I
You're welcome.
talk to Mr. O'Leary for a moment?
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sean O'Leary, Director of Public Works. Councilmember, if I might, just referring to your previous comment, this property is in the Little River, Lake Thunderbird watershed, so it would not be impacted by the Brookhaven or the 10 Mile Flat Creek FEMA study that you were referring to,
Thank you.
if that's helpful. Yeah,
That's
you
very,
bet.
thank you.
Any further questions from council on consent docket items? Councilmember Patron.
I was hoping that Ms. Walker could give us some insight into number 23, the UNP
And
question.
I believe we also have a couple blue cards from the audience. I believe they're both asking about the same subject, so we'll pass it over to City Attorney. Thank you.
Sure. So as many people remember, University North Park was adopted back in 2006. And most people remember that there were some restrictions regarding retail uses on the north half. In the PUD, it restricts commercial uses in the overall development to 50% of the total. So half of it has not been developed as commercial, so there's still room to meet that requirement. The restriction is really contained in the covenants, and the covenants were adopted back in 2006 originally. And they said specifically that no retail uses could occur north of Rock Creek Road, basically. And so in order to allow a commercial retail use in the north half, the property owners had to seek a covenant amendment. My understanding is, and I received documentation today, that out of 44 property owners, they had to have 90% of the property represented. Out of 44 property owners, 41 signed the covenant amendment. And that amendment is limited to this Subaru dealership only, so it's not allowing retail in the north half generally. It's only related to this one location, and so that's what allows it to come forward to council tonight. I got several questions that I want to try and answer. One is asking about whether it qualifies as a high-end business. There is no requirement in the PUD and within the zoning that would require any particular type of business in terms of high-end or retail sales or things like that in terms of zoning. The other questions from Ms. Francis related to the covenants and whether or not the UNP TIF allows the developers to change the covenants. And the covenants were adopted, as I said, back in 2006. Actually, originally, I think before the TIF was even adopted and put into place, and those are private covenants between the property owners, and they run with the land. And so only if the process set forth in the covenants is followed can they be amended as it was here. Could the governing body, the city council, also change the covenants? The city does own property in University North Park, and so if we wanted to change the covenants, we could go through the same process and try and get 90% of the property owners to agree to a change. So yes, we could do that as a property owner as well. The last question I had was whether this item, or how is this item consistent with my view of the effort of the petition on UMP issues. And I was forwarded an email that I think fleshes this out a little bit more, this question. And the question was related to a memo I sent to council probably a month ago about the NEDC quality jobs incentive payments. And at that time, the referendum petition had been filed, signatures had been received, and I believe a lawsuit was already pending challenging that referendum. And what I said to you all then is, generally speaking, the subject matter of an ordinance that is the subject of a referendum is held off the table. It can't be repealed, it can't be amended, it can't be changed during the pendency of the referendum petition. But the NEDC payment considered at that time was not an amendment to the ordinance. It was an authorization under a contract. And even if it was impacted by the ordinance, or even if it had been part of that referendum, it was authorized under both the 2006 project plan and the amendments that the citizens are being asked to vote on. So either way that vote goes, the payment would have been authorized and funding would have been provided for it. Similarly here, this is not a legislative issue. This is not something that's subject to a referendum. It's not part of the project plan. It is consistent with the zoning, and it is not impacted by any vote that ultimately may happen on the referendum petition. It's coming forward consistent with the existing zoning, and that was not part of what was proposed to be amended with the project plan. That ordinance is not the subject of a referendum, and so I believe it can go forward.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from council members? Councilmember Patron.
Can you tell me, Ms. Walker, if the city was one of the signatories to the covenant exception? Were we in that 90%?
No, we did not sign it.
Okay. And of the 44 different owners and 41 signed, is that 44 parcels and some of them might be the same owners, or is that 44 different entities, people?
I'd have to go back and look. I think it was 41 different parcels,
So they might,
different ownership.
or it might be the parcels could have the same ownership, but it's counted by 90% of parcels, not 90% of
I believe
owners.
the covenants. Just give me 1 second. I have it flagged. One of many flags here. There are several common property owners, and I think it was per parcel signatures were provided. That's what it looks like.
So there's 44 different parcels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I haven't counted the number of different property owners, but I know through the bid process, there's quite a number of those through our assessment district process.
Okay, and in the section 17, the UMP section 17, is this the only thing in that section, or is there more to this PUD besides a Subaru dealership?
No, in this plat, it is just the Subaru lot.
So nothing outside of, we're not making any decisions except for with respect to a Subaru lot.
Correct.
I think that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Catherine, what would happen if the Subaru dealership closed? What would a new applicant have to come back to council for a different name, brand, or?
Not in terms of, it wouldn't necessarily require a replat. It could require, if it was a different type of use, it could require another amendment to the covenant. The covenant is pretty specific, saying the automobile dealership parcel may be used for operation of a prototypical Subaru automobile dealership or comparable business operating under a different trade name. So it could be another car dealership, but another retail type of use would require an amendment of the covenants.
Only a car dealership of comparable to Subaru. Okay. Sean, just one question for you. So, based on the location of this, does this interfere at all with the discussions we've had about the extension of that frontage road, the Southwest Wire property, all that?
Sure, great question, Mayor or Mayor Pro Tem. Again, you might look at the location map there where it shows the parcel that is being considered for a final plat here. You'll notice it abuts the corporate center drive on the south, or on the north side of the drive, the roadways on the south. And you'll notice a roundabout. The city actually built this road, built the roundabout. We built that roundabout for the reason that we want to extend, hopefully someday, extend that frontage road, as you're indicating, to the north through the Southwest Wire property, and then connect that into Tecumseh Road in a more conventional interchange configuration. So to answer your question, this development is consistent with our plan and will not impact that development. We still have yet to acquire the necessary right-of-way from Southwest Wire. That's been an ongoing process, and we hope that it continues. And of course, you're also aware that there's a corridor study going on with ODOT and the City of Norman and the City of Moore to resolve some of the interchange design concepts. So that's kicking off phase 2 right now, and we'll know whether that concept that we're referring to here is the preferred concept for ODOT. But just suffice to say that this preliminary, or this final plat, is consistent with all of those plans in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question from Councilmember Patron.
Do you know, did the UMP LLC sell this parcel to the Subaru? Is this a new ownership of that parcel?
I don't know that the sale's gone through yet. I do think they intend to sell if they haven't already, subject to approval of the final plat.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any final comments, questions from council on the consent docket? Okay, then we can cast our votes on the consent docket.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to approve the consent docket passes unanimously.
Okay, so let's see. On to item number 30. Resolution R-1920-83, amending the Norman 2025 Land Use and Transportation Plan to remove 801, 809, and 819 North Finley Avenue from office designation to institutional designation. I'll entertain a motion to approve or reject the land use plan amendment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a representative for the applicant to make a presentation?
Rieger, representing the Norman Public Schools and the applicant in this case. So first I want to say thank you to Councilmember Hall, who's worked with us greatly over the last several days on this to try to get us to a point where we can find agreement on it. I think we've gotten there, but I want to take you through the whole item, and maybe we have a short night tonight. Let's see. So this is the location map. This is the old, we call it the Bethel Building over by the Norman Regional Hospital off Findlay and just south of Robinson. You see Robinson at the top of the map right there. Norman, this is sort of the platting map, so it doesn't look very recognizable, but the site is right here, just north of Oliver Street and next to Findlay Avenue. The existing 2025 plan, so this is the comprehensive plan that talks about the existing plan for the area, shows the blue is institutional, the orange is office, and so you see predominantly office, which is mostly medical office, and then blue institutional, which also predominantly is medical and county fairgrounds at the top. So medical, county fairgrounds is the area generally west and north, and then R1, single family, is the area to the east and south of this site. Our site is right here. You see the 809, 819, and 801. So 2025 is currently office. Zoning on the right, a little bit misleading because the current zoning map shows the hospital as R1. Obviously, the hospital is not single-family residential, but that's the zoning technically for the hospital. So the site that we're on is zoned a PUD, and the PUD currently allows for medical, as you could guess, and emergency medical, basically emergency services could be built on that location. Obviously not the plan anymore with the hospital transitioning to other parts of the community. So that's the current zoning. This is probably the most recognizable. This will help you orient yourself when you look at it. This again is kind of the Bethel Building, we call it. The site is outlined in red. And so the site is the entire area from Oliver Street up to what is now a vacant lot. They're showing a house there, but that is not a house any longer. It's simply a vacant lot at the north end. And then the hospital, of course, to the left. So the Norman Regional Hospital Healthplex over here, office building right here. And then you get up into the fairgrounds just north of Robinson up here. R1 single family to the right and to the south. This is the proposed site plan tonight. The site plan, I'll show you a little more detail on it, but the existing building is this orange building in the middle right here. The white is existing pavement, and then the gray is new pavement, which is basically the street to the south and the basketball court right here. There's a little gray area right here, which is existing pavement, where we're going to mark it off as parking spaces so that the buses can make that turn. So that is still going to be pavement, but not parking spaces, if that makes sense. So, so the existing pavement around the building, this is the new gym building right here on the south, and there's a playground that will be in between the existing Bethel office building and the new gym, with the basketball court right here. And you will see a change I'm going to talk several times about tonight, but there's the dumpster will be moved right to here. Right now, it is right over here on the right, and I'm using my pointer to show you all of this. Right now, it's over here on the right. We're going to shift it over across the driveway to the left to get it away from the residential side where it had been. And then we're going to talk quite a bit about this tonight, but this area right here will be over 20 feet wide as a landscape buffer between the gym complex and the neighbor to the right or to the east. So, and then the connection will go south to Oliver Street right here. Now previously, let me just show you, there was this little, that looks like a building. It's really not, I wouldn't call it a building. It's basically a carport, a vertical structure of a carport. That is being removed along with all of that pavement, and all of those parking spaces are being removed, and that becomes the playground area basically. So everything south of that building is significantly changed. So again, that's the site, that's the existing building, completely remodeled inside, really going to be quite an incredible complex. I had the pleasure of walking through it today, and I was pretty impressed with how they're going to be parceling that out to elementary, middle, and high school, different areas within that building. So that's the site plan. Again, parking is really existing. There's no change really in the parking except for removing these spaces and just cording those off so the bus can make the loop. I'll show you that bus route in just a moment. This becomes fenced around the playground area, right around here, and this all just remains as green space all around the periphery. One thing I do want to show you, because it drove the design in a lot of ways, was the geothermal field. This is a very unique building. You don't see these very often, but this one is in existence. It's a geothermal HVAC system, or a coolant and heating system. So the way geothermal works is they have these large, deep wells, and basically water or fluid is sit down there, and the earth basically keeps it at a constant temperature, and these are deep wells, and then it comes back up, and that becomes the temperature agent that keeps the building at a constant temperature. You can't build over those, obviously. That becomes a pretty serious problem. So that area, and I just kind of outlined it in red over here, is basically non-buildable because of those geothermal wells. So we can't build over that red area, and thus we have this little lot up here, which again is really vacant now, but it's pretty skinny. And so really that meant this southern lot, which was the big, large, unused lot down here, became the location for the gym almost by default, because we certainly don't want to remove the large Bethel building. We want to use that. And so then the gymnasium became the southern end of the property. And so that drove a lot of that design concepts. A lot of this is in your staff reports, but I wanted to show it to you on the right again. That's the site plan in more of a technical showing. 2.39 acres is the entire site. We're changing to a SPUD. It was a PUD, and when it was designed as a PUD, PUDs used to be more than 2 acres, that kind of thing. Now SPUDs are less than 5, and so we call it a SPUD. You can think about them as very similar in a lot of ways, but this is a SPUD that would then allow for the school uses and do away with the medical uses that it was before. It's a repurposed building, and this is important, I think, because you're going to see probably a lot of these. I think Councilmember Hall and many will start dealing with this often around the Norman Regional Hospital site on North Porter. I think we're going to have to find ways to repurpose and reuse these buildings as we go forward. So it's kind of exciting that we have one that's going to be repurposed in a positive way. Norman Regional Hospital, from the staff report, talks about it across Finley, designated as institutional. County Fairground property as well. And so it talks about all of these are trending toward institutional uses and different uses from just medical. Historically, schools are in close proximity to residential neighborhoods. That was in your staff report too. And of course, actually, we know that many schools are very much embedded totally within residential neighborhoods. Many elementary schools, many middle schools, and even some of our high schools are right next to them. So it is actually a very good use to be next to or within a residential neighborhood. And as staff noted, this would actually be a less intense use than the currently allowed uses of medical office, which if you've ever been around medical offices, some of those have really intense parking situations around them. You can see that sometimes. And then emergency medical transportation services, of course, can have loud sirens and things like that. So this does away with those uses in that immediate area. I want to talk about just briefly, I didn't talk about this Planning Commission, but I could tell the Planning Commission were very interested in it. This is for Dimensions. Dimensions is a school in the Norman Public School System, and I should mention Norman Public Schools is here tonight with us, as is the architect and developer. This is a unique school in the Norman Public School System, a very important one. I know I toured it when I went through Leadership Norman, and I hope all of you have had the opportunity to go see it. It's a pretty wonderful program, and it basically is for an alternative education system that allows kids to have education in a different way, is probably the best way to say it. This is, I don't know when the last time they had a new building or a new facility. Maybe never, I don't know. But it's pretty exciting that they will get this, and they will get a gym, and they will get this opportunity. Brand new, walk in there right now, and it's all new sheetrock and mud and tape and flooring and everything. Some unique uses are being put in here that they don't have right now. Right? They will have a cafeteria for the first time. Before they didn't have an actual cafeteria set up. They will have a food pantry for students to take food home. This is important in the Dimensions program. So they will have that here in a discreet, private, careful manner. Then they will have private shower facilities. Some of us take that for granted, but this will have it. Private shower facilities for kids that need that when they're away from home or they have no home. This will have a counselor wing with a very private situation so that they can come to the front, obtain counseling in a private manner, and go back to class. This will have a soundproof music room with guitars and instruments that they can go and basically enjoy music as whether it's a way to vent or a way to deal with whatever they need to deal with. This will have a dedicated art studio. They did not have that before. And I thought I got to see this today. I thought this was really unique. It's going to have a mock apartment with a kitchen and a laundry and a way to help them learn some life skills that you and I take for granted every day. They don't. And so this will have that for the first time, a facility where they can go and learn some things that, again, we take very much for granted. So this will all be encapsulated within this project on this site. The gym is another exciting opportunity for them to have. I'm sure they go by Main Street and they see Norman High's gym. And I'm sure they go by Norman North and they see the athletic facility that has Timberwolves and green and gray and all of the colors. They can have their own now, their own gym that has their logo on it, their school colors, and their athletic facility. They don't have competitive teams, but certainly they have the ability now to enjoy their own gym. And that's the gym on the right. The Bethel building on the left at the top is relatively unchanged. The bus system, there's been a lot of talk about where the buses will go because they wanted to be careful about the neighborhood. And I show you here, this is the site plan. The bus route would come down from Robinson. It would go into the facility right here. It needs to make a big wide turn, and that's why we took out these parking spaces on the right. Makes a wide turn, and then it comes down to Oliver Street, and then it goes back to Finley and back up to Robinson. So that's the route of the busing. There was a question from a neighbor, are we doing away with the public bus stop? We are not. No change at all. You see it right at the bottom, right here. It's right in front of the gymnasium. It's right out here in this view. I would note that as the buses leave the facility and turn left on Oliver, this is their view on the lower left. And it basically is mostly a fence and hedgerow and area like that. There is one house right across the street down here that would be in view of them. Otherwise, this is basically the fence line and the hedgerow on the left side. Another important thing that's happened over the last few days, and I again very much appreciate Councilmember Hall in helping us through this, but this is in the Porter Corridor Zoning Overlay District. I don't know that we've dealt with that in years. I will tell you, I was a zoning attorney on the original Vans, the original Ivan Goodman zoning, and Tara Amara's back 10 years ago, maybe, when that got done. And there was some pretty serious zoning debates. Downright fights, I will tell you, when that got done. And what happened back then was we had these discussions of the line. And just like you have all these acronyms nowadays for certain areas of town, we all talked about a line on this area of town. And it was because it became a battle of how far into the neighborhoods do Porter uses go. And the council back then got tired of debating it with every zoning, saying where's the line going to be, and so they hired a consultant out of Kansas City. I don't remember their name, but they hired a consultant out of Kansas City, went through a long process, a planning process, and what culminated out of that was this overlay district. And out of that district, overlay became a map, and this map on the right is what came out of that study. And you see on the upper right, that red outline is this site tonight. So we are within the extent of the Porter Corridor plan boundary. And there's two boundaries up there, but basically we're within both of them. But that edge, as relevant tonight, that edge became the line. And so what council did at that time was basically predetermined, so that we don't fight about it anymore, they predetermined that that is the edge. And so basically, you can go to that edge. We're not gonna fight about it anymore, is what council said. We can go to the edge. But then they said, let's deal with the edge. They said, let's figure out what we do. If you are gonna go to that edge, how do you deal with it? And what they put forth was basically three things. For new construction and new uses, they had to do three things. They had to do a buffer wall, and the wall had to be basically on the line. It had to be 4 foot tall at the sidewalk, at the street, and then it could tier up to 6 foot tall. Couldn't be higher than that, couldn't be shorter, 6 foot tall along the adjacent backyard of the residential. And there's been a discussion of whether the backyard starts at the front of the house or the back of the house. We don't have a preference on that. I think we're gonna put it at the front of the house. And the wall has to be masonry, stucco, or stone. That's the requirement of the overlay district. Then the second requirement is you have to have a buffer for landscaping, and it says it has to be minimum of 10 feet. We're providing 20 feet. I'll show you that in just a minute. And then it just says trees and shrubs in that location. Now the third requirement deals with parking. but we're not showing any new parking, so it doesn't apply in this particular situation. If you did have parking, then you get into some other requirements that deal with a parking lot. So tonight, we're here to tell you for certainty, and we reissued the SPUD document to tell you that we are meeting the Porter Corridor Zoning Overlay District. We got to figure out that acronym. PCZOD is the acronym. Piece is odd. I don't know what it is, whatever you want to call it. We are meeting that overlay district. We're meeting the design parameters. We're not asking for any variance. And when you look up close, the area that deals with that is I put the red boundary around it right down here. And it's basically, again, that's existing pavement, that white. And so we have this area down here, which is a separate lot, by the way. That's the reason, too. There's a separate platted tract of land right there that this gym goes on. So the only area it really deals with in terms of new construction is that southern part. And so what we're showing now is we have, again, the dumpster used to be right here. In fact, you'll see a vague line right there. That used to be the dumpster right there. We're moving it across the drive lane over to here to get it away from the residential area. And then this all becomes over 20 feet wide of landscaping, which the requirement is 10 feet wide. Then we are putting in the required Porter design parameter wall from the edge of that pavement down all the way to the sidewalk at the street. And so that is the Porter overlay design requirement that we're meeting, and we will put that in. Now, there's some particulars to that too. The water drains from, if you look at that map, from the right to the left or east to the west. So we're going to probably utilize a masonry panel system that we can lift off the ground and have the water flow under it. You see those systems pretty commonly now, instead of burying foundations and creating a dam. So we think we can do that pretty effectively. There has been discussion too with the neighbor and one of our representatives as to maybe moving the wall slightly off so that we don't have to deal with the roots of these trees that are right there. If you look on that screenshot, this is taken from the second floor story of that building. These trees are right up against that house. So we're a little concerned about how we deal with that. I've talked to Councilmember Hall about maybe dealing with, working with Tim Vermillion and the city foresters to help us figure out how we deal with those trees. We don't want to impact the house, but we certainly want to meet the design criteria of the Porter overlay. So I think there's, I'm telling you, a little bit more to figure out precisely how we deal with those trees in this wall, but we will meet the overlay district in every way that is required upon us. So again, this dumpster is moving to where it's across the drive lane. That will be gone, and you'll have the Porter corridor wall all across there with the landscape right there. And the plan is to take these trees out. Again, we just want to make sure it's done properly so we don't hurt the house and that we do so in a proper way. That's the plan. So, and we commit to that. One other point too is we're putting in a sidewalk right across the bottom. There is no sidewalk right now on the south of this property. And so we're going to put in the sidewalk so that now people can walk over to that bus stop on a sidewalk in a controlled fashion. ADA, you'll have ADA ramps right there and there at the curb cut points, and so we'll control that as well. I did get one new request just a short time ago here tonight from one of the neighbors said, is there a way to put a chain or something to basically close this off at night right here? And I think Mr. Milner has said we'll be able to do that. We need to look at it. We need to make sure we don't dead end cars down here. I don't know exactly where we would do it, but there's not hardly any activity there at night, so I think we'll be able to accommodate that too. So that's the next request we got. So we'll meet all of that. Let me go back. So that's the summary of it. Unanimous at Planning Commission. There was one abstention. I don't know if that matters if it's unanimous or not, but there was one abstention. Unanimous, staff supports. We had the one protest letter, and we have methodically gone down that. It had 4 points to it. One was they wanted to make sure the bus stop was not changed. It's not. The second point was really the next 3 points kind of in combined fashion were the wall and the trees and that edge that I just showed you. And I think we've met the spirit of everything in that letter as far as I can tell. And I believe the neighbor and her representative is pleased with that outcome as well tonight. So that's the summary of it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have or show you whatever else you'd like to see. Thank you very much for your time, and we'd appreciate your support tonight.
Are there any questions from council regarding this item? Councilmember Hall.
Good evening, Mr. Rieger. I
evening.
just want to move through some of the points that you've already made, just for clarity's sake, because there have been quite a few moving parts over the last few days. And I first of all want to thank the applicant, Norman Public Schools, for continuing to work through some of the concerns with the neighbor in the neighborhood. And I think we've been successful in accommodating most of those things. But just for clarity's sake for council, I want to just move through a few things.
Okay.
So tell me about the number of students that you expect to be enrolled at Dimensions Academy.
I believe it was about 150 was the last number I heard. Is that right, Justin? Roughly? Go ahead.
That's the most that we've had.
Okay.
That's not the average amount of students that we serve currently, so it's less than 100 as far as on the average
Okay.
rate.
And the number of staff members?
That's around 25 to 35 staff at any given time.
So compared to other elementary school, middle school, high schools in Norman, that's a smaller.
Significantly smaller. The only comparison you would have is Lakeview, Wilson, which would be double the size. This being a smaller school, and again a reminder that serves the school serves kindergarten through 12th grade potentially.
Okay, thank you. So we've already covered the bus stop, the public transit bus stop that will remain in the same location. So
Right.
We have taken care of that. I'd also like you to I know you went through the routing of the bus, but if you could expand just a bit on why that is really your only option. Because you did remove, there were 2 curb cuts on Finley, I believe, and one of those either has been or will be removed.
Yes.
Okay, so if you could just
Okay.
expand on the options that you explored and how you landed on this one.
Okay, so this is the arrow that shows you the existing location. So there was a curb cut right here in this location that Councilmember Hall is referencing. That curb cut is being removed, gone. There's several factors you get into when you're designing things. One, buses are large and they can't turn very easily, and you don't really want them turning into areas where there's kids. So, and then you have to deal with the gym location and the playground location, and so all these things get into Mr. Sullivan's job, the architect, to figure out how he lays all of this out. So the design basically went to where first the gym needed to be down there, because as we talked about the geothermal. Well then, with the gym, you have the playground in between the two. Probably not good to put the buses through that. They need to go a different direction. But then we look at also curb cut locations, which these gentlemen look at, the staff, and they prefer that we always have curb cuts. If we're gonna put a new curb cut on anything, they prefer that it goes to the secondary street instead of the primary street. So whenever you have a parcel that's on a corner, for instance, staff very much prefers that we put any curb cut on the secondary street so that we don't impact the traffic traveling up and down the main, not main, but the more dominant arterial. And so when you look at that corner, it actually is a more natural location to put the curb cut on Oliver instead of on Finley. Then another parameter that staff always likes us to do is generally, and this is more of a general comment, but to keep it away from the intersection as much as possible. So again, naturally, that would mean put the curb cut down away from Finley as much as possible. There gets into other situations of alignment and some things like that. So you start packaging all that up, and it means that a good natural location is to have the buses come into the site and come down to Oliver. Now then, there's an operational aspect to it in that Norman Public Schools buses are basically under the requirement to come and go as quick as possible to a controlled intersection, and that is the Robinson at Finley intersection, the traffic light. And so, get back to the bus path. So that means then, so you take the site design aspects, which tend to basically make it as simple of a path for the bus to get through the site as possible, which is just in, one turn, wide turn, down, to again, the most natural location for a curb cut. Then you take in the requirement of controlled intersection, and so what the buses would do is come down from Robinson, down to this point, make one easy turn left in, make one wide path turn, then go on down to Oliver, but immediately come back to Finley and back up to Robinson. So that's a long way around to answer your question. I hope that answered it.
Yeah.
But all of those factors combine to determine through design and operations how that works.
Okay, thank you. I think you also addressed with the change to building the buffer wall as stipulated in the Porter Corridor Zoning Overlay District.
You got it.
You will be addressing the drainage issues, and I think I had asked for clarification about that in the last couple of days, and it was explained to me that the water flows from the homeowner's property to the elevation keeps going down to Finley. Is that
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
That's correct.
So you are accounting for that with your potential design for the buffer wall.
Correct, yeah. And
Okay.
I was just talking to one of the neighbors. There's a wall in the area here that you could actually consider it. It doesn't show up here, but there's an apartment complex being built up here, senior housing project, that actually has that system alongside of it. It's a panelized masonry system. You could see it there if you've seen that going up. And it basically is piers or columns, and then in between them is supported the masonry panels that then can be off the ground for that location. So
In the existing property on the middle lot, there already is a constructed brick buffer wall. And this would just be a continuation of that wall. Will it be similar in design and an extension of that, or?
no, we anticipate
that
it will
far?
be different.
Okay.
We anticipate that it will basically be more similar to, here's an image that we think it would be. The gymnasium is going to be what we call split face block, which is a material that sort of emulates rough stone. It's not rough stone, it's
Okay.
a manufactured material.
Okay.
But we intend to, in fact, the Porter Corridor design plan directs us to keep the design similar to the building. So we would take the 8-foot wainscot of split face block and mimic it in this product. So
Okay.
again, lift those panels up so the water can go under it, but that would be roughly what it would be.
And this is one of 3 lots, and this is the lot with the new construction
Correct.
being planned.
Correct.
And so this lot is the lot that is affected by the Porter Corridor Zoning Overlay District, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think you also mentioned that you were going to continue the sidewalk to the intersection at the corner of Oliver and Finley. I just
Correct.
want to make sure that was going to happen.
Let me show you those lots real quick, just to
Okay.
show you in visual. This is the city's GIS system. So this is from the city's mapping system, and you can see the line is right there, if you see my pointer, right across that location. So just south of that, what is basically a carport structure is the line for the next tract. So it would affect that tract, which lines up with the back area of the neighbor's house and the dumpster location where it is existing. So it would be that location along that edge of that lot where that would be done.
I also just wanted to publicly thank you for, and the applicant, for agreeing to move the dumpster. That was also a neighborhood concern that you were willing to address, so we appreciate that happening. The other question, well, there's several other questions. So what is the impervious surface coverage for the project?
It's about 65%, 65 point, I'll give you an exact number if you want, but 65% is 65 point something. R1 allows up to 65% as well. So we're not changing the R1 requirement.
Okay. And then I think we've also touched on this too, but because of the nature of this school, Dimensions Academy, what is the expectation of evening activities, and what kind of evening activities will take place?
I don't think they have many. Justin, do you want to talk through it just so I'm actually, you got more information than I do,
Yeah.
so.
So the evening activities, this is not a competitive sport, so there's no sports really scheduled in the evening. Outside a parent conference on occasion, the night activities are really limited or minimized.
Okay, thank you.
More representative of what you would see maybe at an elementary.
Okay. Then I want to move to the third undeveloped lot. I think it's 819 North Finley, the most,
Yes.
I think it's,
Yeah, I don't have a current visual. It shows a house there. There's not a house there anymore.
it's currently an empty lot.
Correct.
Okay, so I've visited this property several times and have noticed that it does no longer have a house on it, for sure.
Correct.
And it does have a fence that's in very poor repair, and some of it is falling down. And there's also a storm shelter on that property. So what, is there a plan to address the fence? And do you know if the storm shelter is currently secured, and what is your plan for that?
So we, thank you, you asked me about that today too, and I checked with the public school system. They absolutely will secure that storm shelter. I don't know if it is tonight or not. Hopefully nobody's watching and we'll go try to get in tonight, but we will absolutely secure that storm shelter
Okay.
and make sure it's that way, which is, I think, the duty of anybody in that situation. We'll also clean up the lot and fix the panels, do what we need to do. We're really focused on getting the students into this project right now, so it's not the primary focus right now to get the project done,
you
but
do
certainly we will take care of
You
that.
plan to address it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I think we really have moved through most of the issues that were contained in the protest letter, and I believe it was the only protest letter that we received.
That's correct.
But it is the homeowner who's the most directly affected. And so
Correct.
this is the homeowner that you have been attempting to work with and find an accommodation since early December.
Correct.
And happily, I think we were able to accomplish that. It took a while, but we were able to accomplish that today. So the final thing I want to address, just to make sure we're all clear, is the whole tree issue, because my understanding of the history of this and the communication timeline with the homeowner is originally there was some concern about the trees that you share on the property line with the homeowner on Oliver.
Right.
And I think, just to summarize, the homeowner has had some time to consider just what is at stake for her and what really are her priorities in the end. And I think those have shifted some since we first started talking about that. So you were willing at the time when you first submitted your original document to accommodate what the homeowner was the most concerned about, and so that's why you were asking for a variance. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And so since then, we are fortunate enough to have a city forester on our staff now, and he made a visit recently to visit with the homeowner in person and on site, and also had the time to assess the stand of trees that were there. And my understanding about that was that he determined that most of it was just volunteer plantings that have just been overgrown and not maintained over time, and that there were two species of trees, but not the type of tree that you would want as part of the healthy urban forest. So his recommendation was to remove the trees, and the homeowner has since agreed with that. And is that your understanding currently with the homeowner?
That's our understanding. We have that letter, and it talks about that, and it talks about these as volunteer trees. Says they've caused damage to the existing chain link fence. It says I want to confirm that Norman Public Schools will build and maintain a privacy wall. That's the border corridor buffer wall we have to build, and that it would be built on schools' property, not responsibility for maintenance. Again, that would be our responsibility. So, as I mentioned earlier, and we were talking to the neighbor representative out front, we don't want to damage the foundation. That's our only sort of a little bit of an unknown right now. Is how do we remove those trees? You can see them in that view right there. They are right next to that house. And these are all the trees that we're talking about. I believe there's a pecan tree out front that they do not want removed and left alone. That's fine with us. But all of these trees, is our understanding, they want these removed. We're fine with that. We just don't want to damage the foundations. And so we appreciate the help of the city to figure that out.
Yeah.
And Mr. Berman.
It's my understanding that the forester is willing to work through those issues and go forward with the best possible plan.
Yeah, and that's what we would prefer.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Councilmember Wilson.
Oh, you guys might have said this earlier, but how many students are served at this facility or will be?
I think Justin said the max is 150, but normally it is lower than that, so.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, are there, just one, I think, on Oliver itself, is there a curb and gutter being, well, I know there's already a gutter, actually. Curb, and are we planning to put a yellow stripe on it or not? I don't know if it meets that threshold, but with buses, not sure if, no, okay.
I'm seeing a no from Mr. O'Leary, so.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be coming up. That is really the only question I had, so thank you, Sean. Are
Okay.
there any other questions from council? Okay. This
Thank
is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments regarding this. Okay, sorry, Councilmember Hall has.
I had a question for Ms. Hudson. I'm sorry. Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have a few questions. The first one is, I know, like I said before, we've had a lot of moving parts over the last couple of days, and the document has changed considerably. So I just wanted to make sure that the document that was submitted late this afternoon is actually meeting the requirements for the Porter Corridor zoning overlay district as far as the planning department is concerned.
Correct. I looked at it earlier, and they had, I'm looking at the red line copy, and they had taken that previous verbiage out, and they say that applicant will install a masonry border wall along the southeast border of the property in order to meet the requirements of the, I call it the PZOD, just letting you know, that's
Okay,
what I
good to know.
call it the PZOD. But yeah, so they agreed to comply with that, and that the applicant's landscape buffer exceeds the requirements of the overlay district.
And then one of the other things I wanted to make sure that we had clarification on, because I know this was also considered yesterday and today, and that was where there is a guideline about how the actual buffer wall extends, well, I would guess you would say begins at the sidewalk and then extends across the side yard through the backyard. And there's a specification for, I believe, starting at 4 feet and then going up to 6 feet in height. But where does that transition actually occur, or how are you interpreting where that transition actually occurs in this particular case?
Well, so historically, we've interpreted it to be at the, it's gone two different ways. So some of the ones that have already been developed, as Sean mentioned, they've gone to midpoint or maybe the rear of the house, and that's when they've gone up to the 6 feet. I do know in this case, the individual has expressed through conversations that there's, when I went by there today, I believe there's actually 4 windows on the side of that house there. It looks like there's only 2 there, but I thought that there were 4. And so she was, it's my understanding that she was concerned, and she wanted to make sure that the windows were shielded and that the wall would control some of the noise from the buses.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Sean said a minute ago, in the ordinance itself, it says that the buffer walls shall tier up from 4 feet at the street to 6 feet along the backyard section of an adjacent residential lot. So if they get behind the 25-foot front yard setback, that can be considered the rear yard. And if that's what they're willing to work with, then, to me, that would be meeting the intent of the code.
And meeting the concern of the neighbor? Yeah, okay, great. So the only other question I have is really back to the tree issue, and I know that you have been in consultation with the forester, and he's not able to be here tonight because of a family emergency, but I just wanted, if you can confirm the understanding that I have. We walked through that a little bit earlier about the assessment of the trees, and that they certainly could be removed if it becomes a foundation issue. I'm sure that will get worked out between the two parties, but assuming that they go ahead and remove the trees, it is my understanding that the forester has resources to be able to remove those trees at the expense of the city of Norman, not Norman Public Schools or the homeowner. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding. So it was, I believe someone had reached out to our CDBG staff member, and they were looking at some funds that were available through the neighborhood program that they're currently working on over there. Tim Vermillion, the forester, had been involved in some of those conversations as well. And so I believe that there's money that they qualify for the removal of those trees through the CDBG Exterior Improvement Grant.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's all I have.
Okay. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments regarding this item. Are there any public comments?
Kamala Jolly Stewart, 621 East Hubert Street. I do live in this neighborhood and drive by this property quite a bit. I also want to thank Councilmember Hall and Norman Public Schools and everyone who's been involved with this project. There have been a lot of moving parts, and weather has impeded conversations and such. So very much appreciation to everyone who's worked on this. But I also wanted to just, for now and for future reference, mention that the reason the Porter Corridor Zoning Overlay District came to be is specifically the intent is to, because it has historical significance as a former U.S. highway and for decades, Norman's thriving automotive business corridor, Porter Avenue is also a gateway to downtown Norman and has the opportunity to become an extension of Main Street. Due to Porter Avenue's significance and potential for redevelopment within the city of Norman, the Porter Corridor Zoning Overlay District is established. It is intended as a first step to provide the following for properties and the commercial residential edge: balance business interest along the corridor with the interest of adjacent neighborhoods, maintain the integrity and improve viability of the adjacent residential neighborhoods, emphasize pedestrian movement and pedestrian orientation of streets and buildings, and then significant to this, ensure the new development and expansion of existing commercial and institutional uses are compatible with existing uses with the historic scale and character of the area and with adjacent residential uses, and to maintain and enhance property values. I think those are really important to consider, that we're looking at not only the kind of development, but that it's consistent with the character and the history of the neighborhood. And so I just want to remind you all that that's our goal here. And then with the design standards, which were mentioned, that we have the buffer wall, the landscaping, et cetera. But I really do hope that this project is seen as a benefit to the neighborhood in the future, and that the school is very carefully considering the aesthetics and you know, that this is going to be right really on next to these houses. I mean, these people are going to be looking at this property every day when they leave. Everyone who drives down Finley is going to see that. So I just appreciate their attention to that, and I hope that this is a true benefit and sets a good standard for what comes forward with the future development of the hospital. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public regarding this item? Okay, I'm seeing none. This is are there any final comments from council regarding this item? Councilmember Hall.
Yeah. I wanted to just take this opportunity to thank the Norman Public Schools and those representing the Norman Public Schools for their commitment to work with the homeowner that's most directly impacted by this project. I also want to make sure to thank city staff for their availability over the last few days and answering questions and clarifying multiple issues that kept popping up on this project. This proposal is a great example of what can happen when an applicant, and in this case, Norman Public Schools, is committed to working with their new neighbors and their new neighborhood to find mutually acceptable solutions and recognizing the impact of a project this size on the surrounding neighborhood. As we move forward in reimagining the Porter campus and the Porter corridor, adhering to the Porter Corridor zoning overlay district is a big step in recognizing the need for community and institutional growth and balancing that with the appropriate transition and buffer required to maintain a vibrant corridor with respect for the importance of the surrounding historic neighborhood. So I appreciate all of the work that's been done really from the beginning, but the attention to meeting the concerns of the neighbor over the last few days. And for all of those reasons, I intend to support this project.
Thank you. I think I will make a few comments about this. Mainly that I started watching city council meetings a really long time ago on TV, and I started coming to a few of them when I was in high school. But I didn't really start coming all the time till about 2008 or so. And the Porter Corridor study was one of the big issues going on at that time. And I lived in Ward 4, and my council member, Carol Dillingham, shout out to you if you're watching out there, really worked hard on this, spent a lot of time on this. Former Mayor Rosenthal represented Ward 4 before she was mayor, and this was a big issue for her as well. And I know over the years, there's been a lot of criticism about the Porter Corridor study, that it's just a study sitting on a shelf somewhere and it was expensive. But over the years, and some examples that I mentioned tonight with Vans and Terra Hamaras, there have been multiple projects that have come forward that have had to comply with the Porter Corridor plan. The most visible part of the Porter Corridor plan was, of course, the streetscape project. And that was something that Carol Dillingham told me years ago, that it's the most visible part of this project, and it'll take years, probably, maybe 10 years, before we can get that street project done. And thanks to Norman voters, last April, that was one of the projects that was included and approved by voters. And so what I mean to say really is that the Porter Corridor study is what I would describe as a living document. It has been in place, not just sitting on a shelf. It gets pulled off that shelf every time somebody wants to do a project in this. The building that the Friendly Market is in is a result of the Porter Corridor plan. Investment into that building, revitalization from architect Brent Swift, right after that plan was approved by council. So this is another one. We had one a few weeks ago, I think, in regard to another expansion by Vans. So I think the Porter Corridor has served to help residents know that they're going to be protected from encroachment of commercial, and it gives commercial businesses assurance that they have the space they might need to make their businesses viable going forward. So with that, there is a motion on the floor to approve the land use plan amendment. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been to adopt the land use plan amendment passes unanimously.
Okay, item number 31, ordinance 0-1920-33, rezoning 801, 809, 819 North Finley Avenue from the PUD Planned Unit Development District to a SPUD, Simple Planned Unit Development District. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
So moved. So moved. Second.
This is a companion item for the previous item. Are there any questions from council? Okay, I'm seeing none. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you don't need to do public comment on this one? Are there any comments or questions from the public on this companion item? Okay, seeing none. Okay, the motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon second reading passes unanimously.
Okay. Item number 32 is miscellaneous, Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
votes have adopt the ordinance upon final reading, passes unanimously.
Okay. All right, item number 32 is miscellaneous discussion. This is an opportunity for citizens to address city council. Remarks should be directed to the council as a whole and limited to 3 minutes or less.
John Chisholm, 130 Alameda Plaza here in Norman. This will be very brief. I'm concerned about the dissemination of the new rules concerning recycling. The current rules are posted on the city website. Before the end of the year, I received a flyer. I cannot recall whether it was by mail or stuck in the door, mentioning that 1 and 2 plastics were all they were interested in, which I have complied with. Today, I found someone that also received a flyer, but all his flyer mentioned was that they wanted aluminum and they were not interested in other metal. So it strikes me as what we got was piecemeal, and there doesn't appear to be anything in place to uniformly distribute it beyond possibly what's on the city website and possibly what was published in the Norman transcript for those that happen to catch it. I don't expect a response from this. It's just I thought that this, if we want recycling to work here, this information really needs to get out, because it is the people throwing stuff in the blue containers that are in control of what's actually occurring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I might be able to follow up with you. You pin in the salmon tie? Salmon? I'm not sure. Pink? That is a good question. I think we might have, city utility bills might be another way too, so thank you. Are there any other comments from the public, miscellaneous comments from the public tonight?
Cynthia Rogers, 633 Reed Avenue, Ward 4, yay. I guess what I want to talk about is why we're not talking about the University North Park Master Operating Agreement and Development, Master Operating Plan and Development Agreement. Honestly, we've talked about that so little. That's not part of the referendum. That's the thing that implements the project plan change. That's also the thing that's really scary if you look at the fine print. It's also really scary that the staff report on that left out some very important things that I'm not sure all of you who voted on this understand those implications of promising we will complete projects that are maybe $58 million when we have secured $27 million. I don't know how you can promise to build those by a deadline in a contract and not know where those funds would come from. I find that alarming. I find that not very transparent. And I'm really worried that that's just going to send us off a cliff. And I think we should be talking about that. So I'll just keep trying and keep asking for that conversation. It's a major thing. It's a major financial commitment. It can really hurt us in future budgets. And it can also give a lot of leverage for people who have proven that they want to sue us. So please, can we talk about that? Thank you.
Thank you.
So Evan A. Dunn, 1400 Garfield, Ward 7. I too care about a lot of the things that Cynthia just mentioned. Having the conversation is where it starts. Because until we have the conversation, we can't brainstorm and creatively synthesize alternative ways of plugging budgetary holes and finding creative ways to finance these obligations, either the short-term obligations or the long-term contractual obligations. Is it possible, Mrs. Attorney, for the city to receive some debt infusion from Republic Bank, Arvest Bank, such that it is not a multi-year encumbrance? Anthony? Without it going to a vote of the people.
I might have to follow up with you on that one, Evan.
Okay. I think there's a possibility that the referendum and all the budgetary problems the stress, the budgetary stress can be mitigated some if we have alternative financing options. And I've never heard anyone discuss that. GO bonds, yes, we use those for a lot of enterprise funds, et cetera. But that's an interesting possibility. That's one thing. I need your help. I need everyone's help. Youth Runs needs your help. I have this idea, because building a business is hard. I know Kate and Sarita can empathize a little bit with that. So imagine there's a commercial, and in this commercial, what it is a day in the life of a youth run. The day in a life of a youth run at a yoga studio. The day in a life of a youth run on a construction site. The day in the life of a youth run at the Norman High football workout gym. A day in the life, maybe, of a youth run in city government. How could a youth run be used in the course of
Are there any further comments from the audience?
Stewart, 621 East Hubert Street. In thinking about all of the projects we have coming forward in the core area downtown, what might happen on Gray Street in the future and along the Porter Corridor, I just want to encourage all of you and remind you that we do have a goal of changing the current uses to be more walkable, to increase pedestrian traffic, to create an area that's vibrant and alive. And part of that process is going to be to have housing that is attractive to people who want to live in an area like that. But we also need to balance that with keeping the character of the neighborhood. And it's not a small thing, but I think it's important to be reminded of, because what happens in this area really is going to have an impact on the entire city and the quality of life for people around there. So I just wanted to remind you of that. And I second the thing about the recycling. It'd be nice to have some new magnets, for example, that we have as reminders of what is and isn't allowed, because it gets confusing. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain comments from the council. We'll start at Ward 1 and go down the line.
All right. So I wrote this down because I had an awful lot going on these last couple weeks. But I wanted to talk about Black History Month. This is one of 2 meetings that happened during Black History Month. And it shouldn't just be about a recognition or a celebration of the achievements and stories of Black America, but it also needs to stand as an annual reminder that we have yet to eradicate the systemic racism that created a need for a month like this by stealing history in the first place. I don't think anyone can argue that despite Brown versus Board of Education, racial segregation is still the norm in public schools. Despite the Fair Housing Act, racial housing segregation has barely changed in the last 40 years. Despite the Voting Rights Act, state laws pertaining to voting still disproportionately affect black voters. Black unemployment is still twice as high as white Americans, and black Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white Americans. So I am actually going to read a poem written by Dwayne Reginald Betts. He served 8 years in prison for a carjacking, and while he spent 14 months in solitary confinement, the books that the corrections officers slipped under his door were primarily poetry because they were the ones that the library would miss the least. And so after his term, he graduated from college and Yale Law School while pursuing his passion for poetry and activism in juvenile justice reform, and he is currently a fellow at Harvard. And this poem is called When I Think of Tamir Rice While Driving. I'm going to be editing out a couple words that are probably not appropriate for public access television, at least not before 2 in the morning. When I think of Tamir Rice while driving, in the back seat, my sons laugh and tussle far from Tamir's age, adorned with his complexion and cadence, and already warned about toy pistols, though my rhetoric ain't about fear but dislike, about how guns have haunted me since I first gripped a pistol. I think of Tamir, twice blink, and confront my weeping's inadequacy, how some loss invents the geometry that baffles. The Second Amendment, cold, cruel, a constitutional violence, a ruthless thing worrying me still. Should be it predicts the heft in my hand, arms sag, burdened by what I bear, my bare arms collaged with wings as if hope alone can bring back a buried child. A child, a toy gun, a blue shield's rapid, rapid, rapid shot. This is how misery sounds. My boy is playing in the back seat, juxtaposed against a 12-year-old's murder playing in my head. My tongue cleaves to the roof of my mouth, my right hand is forgotten. This is the brick and mortar of the America that murdered Tamir and may stalk the laughter in my back seat. I am a father driving his black sons to school, and the death of a black boy rides shotgun. And this could be a funeral procession, the death a silent thing in the air, unmentioned, because mentioning death invites taboo. If you touch my sons, the blood washed away from the concrete must, at some point, belong to you, and not just you, to the artifice of justice that is draped like a blue god around your shoulders, the badge that justifies the echo of the fired pistol. Taboo. The thing that says freedom is a murderer's body mangled and disrupted by my constitutional rights come to burden, because the killer's mind refused the narrative of a brown child his dignity, his right to breathe, his actual existence, with all the crystalline brilliance I saw when my boys first reached for me. The world best invite more than the story of children bleeding on crisp fall days. Tamir Rice's death must be more than warning about recklessness and abandoned justice and white terror's ghost. And this is why I hate it all, the protests and their counters, the civil rights attorneys that stalk the bodies of the murdered, this dance of ours that reduces humanity to the dichotomy of the veil. We are not permitted to articulate the reasons we might yearn to see a man die. A mind might abandon sanity. What if all I had stomach for was blood? But history is no sieve, and sanity is no elixir, and I am bound to be haunted by the strength that lets Tamir's mother, father, kinfolk resist the temptation to turn everything they see into a grave and make home the series of cells that so many brothers already call their tomb.
Can you say a few other things?
Councilmember Patron.
How do you follow that up? It's difficult. So I would like to congratulate Hank Cantwell for Ward 3 resident joining the Bicycle Advisory Committee again, and we are grateful for your voice and your willingness to serve. And I would like to say this has been, I had to choke back tears earlier with the dimensions. We really, I feel like that it's projects like that that it's what we owe to our kids, and that we are not leaving people behind and offering that opportunity. And it kind of took me back to the point in time count, to think that there's little bitty ones that, yeah, anyway, this has been a tougher meeting than I thought it would be. Looking at the agenda wasn't, it kind of caught me by surprise. But anyway, so anyway, I want to thank Norman Public Schools. I want to thank you, Mr. Rieger. And I'm excited about that project. I'm excited that we are extending grace in our community, and that we are elevating lives. And I appreciate that. And so that's really all I have. And I'm grateful for my colleagues up here as well.
Our newly elected council member Hall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep my comments very short tonight, but I just want to say to Dimensions Academy, welcome to the neighborhood. I just have two announcements. There is the Artful Inlet submissions that are due this Friday on February 14th. So I encourage all our creative types out there to submit an entry for this very creative and fun program that was started last year. And I also want to encourage everyone to come out for Art Walk in historic downtown Norman on Friday, which is also Valentine's Day. Great way to celebrate Valentine's Day from 6 to 9. And also just want to say one more time, thank you to city staff who really rose to the occasion the last couple of days, and how much I appreciate you. So thank you.
Councilmember Wilson.
And I thought I wasn't going to cry tonight at all, too. And evidently, thanks, Kate. I don't really have a whole lot, but I do appreciate Norman Public Schools' effort in this. And I know that Sean Rieger gets a lot of crap in this room. So good job accommodating the neighbors. And as a person who, I finished my high school, but I probably could have gone to a Dimensions. I appreciate that Norman has something like that, so thank you.
Councilmember Scanlon.
I read an editorial in the weekend paper, and it was about the campaign. And a sentence in there caught my eye. It had to do with homelessness. Most candidates thus far have tended to agree on most issues. Homelessness is a problem that needs to be addressed, though we haven't really heard any real ways that they would tackle the problem. And I guess that's a criticism of those of us that were campaigning. Because there's a lot that's being done in this city. And the paper that published this editorial has covered a lot of it, and the lady that wrote most of the articles is in the room. We've worked very hard to open a warming shelter. We're working very hard to find something follow-on to that, a resource center of some kind to continue to work with the homeless, to attract them, to provide services to them on a more regular basis than we do today. We'll continue this effort for as long as it takes. But I just, as I said, that article, that sentence caught my eye, and I just had to bring it to the attention because I thought it may be a reflection on me as a campaigner, and I'll take that. But I just have to sing the praises of the city staff that's worked so very hard on this project.
Thank you. Councilmember Scott.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, my colleagues. Congratulations, Councilmember Hall. Yay. Looks like there's going to be some new faces up here as well in July. I also want to give a shout out to Stacy from our staff for the amazing chili that she made. It's vegan. I'm still full, and I am in pain this entire meeting. It was great. I'm very, very pleased. Thank you so much, Stacy. And I think, just to comment on Councilmember Scanlon, if you feel hurt by what was written, I will remind you all that when I was running, the paper endorsed my opponent. So, and that was the last endorsement they made. Yeah. So anyway, I'm done being petty for the evening. We can we can wrap up and go home. So thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you. Just a few comments. This morning I had the opportunity to give a welcome to the Oklahoma Association of Housing and Redevelopment Group at the Embassy Suites, a conference that they're having, and really a lot of members from HUD were there. I saw former Councilmember Greg Youngman was there. And really a group that really focuses on that exact thing, housing and redevelopment. And I just had the opportunity in Mayor Clark's absence to welcome them to Norman and thank them for having their conference there. It was very nice and a subject that I'm very interested in personally and have spent a lot of time making policy on. I also had the opportunity this past Friday to spend the entire day at the state capitol with the Conference of Mayors, or the Congress of Mayors, Mayor's Council of Oklahoma. Mayor Clark is out of town, so I attended that in her place. And it was basically, we went as though we were like state legislators for a day. It was mayors from all over the state of Oklahoma, and we broke up into committees. We discussed and debated various policy issues. We brought those issues out of committee, and then we debated them on the floor of the legislature, which was pretty fun, I might say. It's definitely different than what we do here behind the dais. But it wasn't fun enough necessarily to convince me that it would be something I would want to do on a regular basis. I left over an hour early to get there and have some time to get settled, and there were 2 accidents on I-35 and more that caused me to literally, I got there in time to run up the steps so that I wouldn't be late and interrupt the introduction, all that stuff. So just another reminder of why I don't like driving to the city on any regular basis, and I don't know how anybody could do it. It was extremely frustrating to me. I just, so maybe when we have the commuter rail up and running, I would reconsider that type of thing. But it was a really great opportunity. I got to meet some really wonderful elected officials from around the state. There's some places that are dealing with some real serious issues, and they really lack the resources to address them. I think sometimes, not necessarily that we take them for granted here, but we are fortunate to be in a community and a city that has the resources that we do have. And I know we are always searching for more resources, and we always have needs. But a little bit of perspective to go and spend a day with some of these other elected officials from some towns that have nothing. They don't even have a convenience store. And so I'm sitting here wondering, in a state that makes cities rely on sales tax for operations, what do? And one mayor told me that they literally rely on donations. People donate to the local government, and that's how they're able to do it, because they have no access to property taxes, of course. Yeah, and some of these towns are only a square mile, not even a square mile. And so it was really interesting to get to spend a day with them and to work on legislation that is important to cities. The stuff that we voted on and sent forward goes to Lieutenant Governor Pinnell and could eventually make its way into becoming law in Oklahoma. So I was very excited about that, thankful for the opportunity, Mayor Clark letting me fill in for her on that. So other than that, I want to appreciate everybody for watching at home, everybody here in attendance, and we will see you next time. Do I need a motion to adjourn? This meeting is adjourned.